In this video, we're going to talk about how you can handle the agony of defeat as an athlete. Hey there, I'm Eli Strawman, a performance coach and the founder of SuccessStartsWithin.com. Now, as an athlete, you know that you don't want to lose, right? You don't want to be defeated, you don't want to fail, but the truth is it's going to happen. And so the question isn't whether or not I'm going to be defeated, whether or not I'm going to lose, it's how am I going to handle it? How am I going to deal with those negative feelings and those frustrations that I know are going to happen when I lose, when I make a mistake, or when I fail? Before we get into ways that you can handle the agony of defeat, we want to talk about how you shouldn't handle the agony of defeat. And the first way that you shouldn't do it is by internalizing the defeat. This happens a lot, and I hear it a lot from athletes I work with, especially when we are talking about their negative self-talk. And that's this idea that they're the reason that their team lost. You know, maybe you did make the mistake to lose the game, but there were other factors that led to your team losing. If you have an individual sport, this may be different, but you don't want to internalize a defeat. And what I mean by that is go over it and over and over it and allow it to just eat you up from the inside. And this leads into the second thing that you don't want to do, and that is to take the defeat too personally. You really have to make sure that a loss on the field or court does not impact how you feel about yourself as a person. The reason that that is so important is because, number one, it's just going to make you feel awful, but also because that's where we find burnout and the loss of passion to play happen. I've been working with an athlete who was dealing with burnout. She's seeing some improvements with it, but that burnout was really caused by pressure. We see a lot of pressure happen in terms of burnout, some anxieties, but also because defeats were taken very personally. Now, it's hard not to take defeats personally as an athlete because you train so hard to win, right? You train hard to play well. And so when you do lose, when you are defeated, it is very easy to take it personally. But you want to make sure you don't take it personally because that's going to just lower your overall self-esteem, and it can also lead you to feeling burnt out and losing this passion to play. But also another thing that happens when you take defeats too personally is that this is going to lead to some fears in the future. Because when a defeat feels so emotionally negative, what's going to happen when you move forward is that you're going to start fearing making mistakes and fearing losing in the future because you don't want to feel that way again. But when you are afraid of making mistakes, that actually increases your chances of making mistakes because you don't perform as freely and with as much confidence. You tend to perform more timidly, and you'll also hold yourself back. And then the third thing that you don't want to do is focusing too much on the negatives. After a game, it can seem like the best option to focus on the negatives because you don't want to make those mistakes again. But there's a much better way of thinking about mistakes, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But for right now, just know that after a game, one of the worst things you can do is focus so much on the negatives. So how can you cope with the agony of defeat? Well, what you first want to do is separate yourself from the defeat. This is going to happen by you reminding yourself that you are a person, right? You're a person outside of being an athlete. I know that the athlete is pretty much everything that you are, but you need to separate yourself from that. And kind of an actionable way of doing this is forgetting about the performance for a little while. One of the things I like to recommend is, go out to eat with your parents, go out and get some drinks with your friends, do something that can cause you to literally forget about the performance for a little while and separate yourself. Because we're going to think back about the performance, but sometimes we need to take a break. Right after the game is a lot of times not the best time to evaluate and analyze the performance if it was a bad game or if it was a loss, because you might be too frustrated. You might be feeling too negative. So you need to separate yourself from that defeat. The next thing you want to make sure of is that you don't deny your feelings. What I mean by that is, me saying, hey, you shouldn't take it too personally. You shouldn't feel so negative and focus on the negatives. That doesn't mean that you aren't going to feel that way. Because the truth is you do care, right? You care about playing well. You care about your performance. But we want to make sure that you use that and you leverage it in a positive way. So don't deny your feelings. Recognize them. Say, yes, I'm not happy about the loss. I'm not happy about the way that I played. But I'm going to do something about it. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. But the third step is that you want to focus on the positives. No matter how negative the game was, I guarantee there was some small positive aspect that you can find. It's very important that you focus on that positive because it's going to initially help you feel a little bit better, but over the long term, that's going to train you to focus on what you do well, which is a crucial aspect of building confidence. But now that you've focused on the positives and you're in a better position, now it's time for the last step, which is where you're going to ask yourself, what can I learn? That is the most important thing when it comes to coping with the agony of defeat. It's getting something that you can learn from this performance. If you know that after every bad game, you're going to learn something, then all of a sudden bad games don't become something to fear because you know that you're going to improve as a player because you're learning something from that bad game. This is where the leverage that I talked about a second ago in terms of don't deny your feelings really comes into play. Because, you don't want to deny the fact that you're frustrated, but we want to use that as motivation to learn something from that game and then get to work the next week on improving. Because mistakes you make, they're not going to go away just by you saying, I'm not going to take it personally. They're going to go away by you actually improving on the thing that you made a mistake. It's a fact that you made mistakes during the game. It might be the fact that you made the error to end the game. Doesn't mean you lost the game for your team, but you made the error to end the game. Or maybe you missed a bunch of shots and that didn't help your team out. But that means that there's something you can work on. Something you can work on to improve moving forward. And that is a crucial aspect of coping with the agony of defeat. So use this strategy whenever you lose or whenever you're dealing with defeat as an athlete. Because remember, you are going to face defeat as an athlete, no matter how big or small it is. And so the question is, how are you going to respond to this? Are you going to let it tear you down? Or are you going to learn something from the defeat? If you have any questions about this video, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And if you like this video, go ahead and like it and subscribe if you haven't already, because I put out new videos each day on sports psychology and mental training. Thank you for watching, and I wish you the best of success in all that you do.